At Christmas, my mom whispered, "No one wants your screaming baby here." My dad added, "You should have stayed home, it's better without you." I just said, "Then so is my money." They laughed like it was a joke. But after 3 weeks, their lives started to unravel. I knew Christmas was going to be rough this year, but I went anyway. Mostly because I still had this tiny flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, my parents would see me differently now. Not as the 19-year-old who threw her life away, but as someone who's still standing, still trying, still fighting. And it's not like they ever told me to come. They don't invite me anymore. But I guess I thought showing up with a homemade pie and Eli in a red reindeer onesie would soften something in them. I don't even know why I try. It had snowed that morning, and by the time I got there, the driveway was already packed. My older brother's SUV was taking up the spot I used to park in. I carried Eli inside in his car seat, the wind freezing my fingers as I fumbled with the baby bag. No one came out to help. I knocked, and after a pause, my mom opened the door and stepped aside without saying anything. The warmth hit me like a slap. Not comfort, just a reminder of what I was walking into. The house smelled like cinnamon and ham. The same old Christmas decorations were up, but they looked different now, like props on a stage. My dad was watching football, my brother's kids were tearing into early presents, and his wife, Qley, was already halfway through a glass of wine. No one said hi. Eli started fussing just a little. Nothing dramatic. I rocked the car seat gently, hoping he'd calm down. That's when my mom leaned over like she was fixing the wreath on the sideboard and whispered it real low. "No one wants your screaming baby here." I just froze. It didn't even register at first. I thought maybe I heard her wrong. Then my dad, without looking away from the game, added, "You should have stayed home, it's better without you." I looked at my brother, but he was pretending to play with one of his kids. I didn't say anything. I just stood there like an idiot holding the bag of gifts I bought with the last $200 I had after rent. Things for them. Candles for my mom, a book for my dad, toys for the nieces. I didn't buy myself anything this year. Couldn't. Then I said it. Not loudly. Just quietly, like I was thinking out loud. "Then so is my money." They laughed. Not a hard laugh. Just that dry little scoff they do when they think I'm trying to be dramatic. My mom waved me off. My dad chuckled and went back to his beer. My brother finally looked up and said, "Hey, come on, it's Christmas." Like that meant anything. I left the pie on the counter and turned around. No one tried to stop me. I buckled Eli back in while he screamed in the back seat, and I drove away without saying goodbye. On the way home, I stopped at a Walgreens just to sit in the parking lot. I cried until I felt sick. Not just because of what they said, but because I realized something I'd been avoiding for a long time. They don't love me. Not the way parents are supposed to. Maybe they never did. But the craziest part? That wasn't the moment everything fell apart. That came later. Much later. The next morning, I woke up before Eli did. For once, the apartment was quiet. I lay there in the dark, listening for that first little whimper that usually came around 6:30, but it didn't come. I checked my phone not because I wanted to, but because I knew there'd be something from my mom. There always was after things got tense. 3 messages. One was a blurry photo of the dinner table from last night. Everyone was smiling, even the kids. My brother was holding up a glass of wine. Qley had her arm around my mom. The caption just said, "Nice evening. Hope you and the baby got rest." The second message was short. "Next year just get a sitter. That way everyone can enjoy themselves." The third one was worse somehow. Just 4 words. "Don't be so sensitive." I didn't answer. I put the phone face down on the counter and started making a bottle. That morning I had a deadline for one of my freelance gigs. A product review article for some travel website. The irony was painful. I hadn't left the apartment in days except for gas and diapers. I was sitting cross-legged on the floor with my laptop propped on a pillow while Eli kicked beside me, smiling like he hadn't screamed for 6 hours straight the night before. I submitted the article, sent the invoice, and opened my banking app. That's when I saw it. An automatic payment had gone through, $89.67 to Spectrum. My parents' internet bill. I'd been covering it for months without really thinking. It started as a one-time favor after my mom's card got declined during the summer. Then it just stuck. I opened the transaction history. More charges. $112 for their electric bill 2 weeks ago. $55 to Boost Mobile, my dad's phone. $34.80 for their water bill back in November. That was money I didn't have. Money I'd been pulling from grocery funds. Rent. Diapers. I remembered eating dry cereal for 3 days last month and blaming myself for being disorganized. It wasn't disorganization. It was them. What really got me was the total, nearly $900 since September. And not once had either of them said thank you. Not once had they asked if I was managing okay. Not once had they said anything at all. They just expected it. Like it was some kind of invisible tax I owed for becoming a mother before they said I was allowed. I sat there for a while just staring at the screen, listening to Eli make happy little noises on his playmat. Then I opened all the accounts one by one. The utility sites, the mobile carrier, the bank. I canceled every autopay, every saved card, every reminder. And then I opened the family group chat. Just so you know, I won't be covering any bills going forward. Things are tight and I need to focus on taking care of Eli and myself. Simple. Direct. No anger. No explanation. My brother saw it first. He didn't say anything. Just a thumbs up. That was his way of staying neutral. Not helping but not throwing me under the bus either. My mom left it on read for hours. When she finally responded, it was just, "We'll figure it out. Thought you understood how family works." But my dad? He sent an entire monologue. He wrote about sacrifice. About duty. About how I wouldn't even have an apartment or a baby if it weren't for the values they gave me. About how selfish I sounded. How I was letting bitterness corrupt the holiday spirit. That's what he called it. Corruption. Like I was some villain because I refused to keep paying their bills while I rationed formula and bought diapers 2 boxes at a time on Amazon using gift cards from online surveys. I didn't reply to that either. I just sat on the couch that night after Eli finally went down and thought about how many things I'd let slide. The guilt. The manipulation. The little digs that started the day I told them I was pregnant. My mom said I ruined her retirement plans. My dad told me to handle it before it was too late. I didn't listen to them and I think they hated me for it. Not openly, just in those slow, suffocating ways that take years to see clearly. The week passed quietly. No more messages. No phone calls. Not even a meme from my mom, which was rare. The group chat went dead. I knew that silence meant something was coming. They were planning something. I could feel it. I just didn't think they'd take it so far. The silence lasted exactly 6 days. On the 7th, my landlord called. I let it go to voicemail at first. I was pacing the apartment with Eli, trying to settle him down after another screaming fit. His stomach had been a mess all week. I hadn't slept more than 2 hours at a time. I was behind on 2 freelance projects, and I was living mostly on toast and black coffee. The voicemail was short. He said my rent hadn't gone through. I thought it had. I always scheduled it for the 1st and it had never been a problem before. So I logged into my banking app. That's when I saw it. The payment had been reversed. Not failed, reversed. Someone had logged in and canceled the transfer. At first, I panicked thinking maybe my account had been hacked. Then I looked closer and saw the login history. The device used was familiar. An old laptop I hadn't touched in a year, one I left behind when I moved out of my parents' place. My dad used to borrow it. Said he didn't trust his own computer with online banking. I checked my email next. One of my best clients, a travel blog that paid decently and regularly, had canceled our project. Apparently, I had declined a meeting with them and said I wasn't available anymore. Except I never got the invite. I dug through my spam folder and there it was. A calendar invite with a reply from my account that read, "Not available at this time. Judy." I didn't send it. That project was supposed to be $600. I'd been counting on it to get us through the next 2 weeks. Formula, wipes, rent. All of it. I didn't have to guess who did it. I knew. They didn't yell. They didn't message threats. They just quietly pulled things apart from behind the scenes, one thread at a time. They knew how close to the edge I was, how many times I'd mentioned money being tight. And I think that's exactly why they did it. Because I said no. Because I cut off the money. Because I dared to have boundaries. I felt something deep in my stomach that night. Not fear exactly. Just this sinking realization that I'd spent years handing over power to people who didn't deserve it. Passwords, trust, money, access. All of it. I'd made everything easier for them while they made everything harder for me. So I changed every password. I closed out the bank account I'd used since I was 16. I moved everything to a new platform with 2-step verification. I deleted my backup email, the one I knew my dad had access to. I even replaced my SIM card. And then I blocked them. All of them. My mom. My dad. My brother. His wife. I didn't say anything. I didn't warn them. I just cut the wire. For the first time in my life, I didn't care if they were confused or hurt or angry. I didn't care if they thought I was being dramatic. I was done. But of course it didn't end there. 3 days later, a relative I barely spoke to, my mom's cousin Brenda, messaged me on Facebook. She said my parents were worried sick, that they were trying to get in touch but I wasn't responding. She asked if everything was okay. I ignored it. Then my brother messaged me from a number I didn't recognize. He said he didn't want to get in the middle, but that mom and dad were confused about why I'd disappeared. He said they'd been really hurt by the way I ghosted everyone, that they didn't understand what they'd done wrong. I stared at that message for a long time. Because they did understand. Of course they did. You don't sabotage someone's rent and steal their income by accident. You don't use your own daughter's name to decline a job interview unless you know exactly what you're doing. What they didn't understand was that I wasn't going to crawl back this time. That I wasn't going to explain myself. That I wasn't going to play the daughter who always forgives, always pays, always shows up. That version of me didn't exist anymore. And the craziest part? I think they still believed they had some kind of hold over me. They had no idea what was coming. I didn't set out for revenge. That wasn't the goal. I just wanted peace, to finally stop waking up and bracing myself for some new obligation I never asked for. I thought blocking them would be enough. But with people like my parents, silence is its own kind of war. It started quietly. My mom made a new Facebook account under the name Linda M. No photo, no friends, just a message that said, "Hope you and the baby got some rest." The same exact words she used before. She thought she was being subtle. She wasn't. Then one of my freelance clients forwarded me an email. It came from a burner account, no signature, just a note that said, "Just a warning, the girl you hired has serious issues. She's not stable. Be careful who you trust around children." I stared at the screen for a long time. They hadn't just crossed the line. They'd bulldozed it. Quiet sabotage. They knew better than to confront me directly. They knew it was harder to prove. But I recognized the wording. Sounded like my dad. The same way he used to talk about people he didn't like. Mentally soft. Not built for pressure. Can't handle reality. I lost a client because of that email. One of the reliable ones. The kind that pays on time and keeps coming back. They didn't say it was because of the message, but I could tell. Their emails went cold. I'd gone from valued contributor to a ghost in their inbox. That night I didn't cry. I opened my bank accounts, my freelance platforms, every login I could remember, and locked everything down. New passwords. Two-factor authentication. Closed anything that felt vulnerable. I even changed my phone number. Paid a $30 fee I couldn't afford just to make it harder for them to find me again. Then I went further. I remembered that years ago I added my parents as authorized users on a credit card. It was supposed to help them build credit. They never used it, or so I thought. When I checked the old statements, I saw it. Dozens of little charges. Fast food. Amazon. Guess. A $212 order in Qley's name. That was last December. The Christmas I skipped because Eli had just been born. I paid the balance in full and shut the card down. Then I called every utility company still tied to my name and unlinked everything. It took hours. I had to scan old lease agreements and fax them in. But by the end of the week, the internet, gas, and phone lines at their house were no longer my responsibility. And without warning, their services started shutting off. The final hit was the electricity. At 11:48 p.m. on a Wednesday night, my brother called. I let it ring. Then came the voicemail. He was yelling, saying the power was out, that dad was losing it, that mom was crying, that they were blaming me. He said, "What did you do? You're ruining their lives. They said you're punishing them." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because that message told me everything I wanted to know. They didn't fall apart because I attacked them. They fell apart because I left. Because I stopped holding up the pieces. Because without me they didn't know how to function. The next day Brenda messaged me again. She said they were worried. That I was lashing out. That people in the family were starting to talk. But they weren't saying what she thought they were. Two aunts I hadn't heard from in years reached out. Quietly. Carefully. They said they'd heard what was going on. Not from my parents, but from others. They said they'd always noticed things even back when I was a kid. How the house felt tense. How my parents only bragged about me when I was useful. They didn't say much. They didn't have to. One of them sent a grocery delivery to my apartment that same evening. Diapers. Formula. A box of wipes. Pasta. A note that just said, "Take care of yourself and the baby. You're not alone." I stood in the kitchen staring at the bags for a long time. Because for the first time in months, no one wanted anything from me. No one was asking me to fix something. No one was blaming me for existing. I fed Eli, gave him a warm bath, and held him a little longer than usual that night. And for the first time since Christmas, I didn't feel scared. I felt free. At first, the silence almost felt like a gift. I got a few nights where Eli slept 4, sometimes 5 hours at a time. I used that time to catch up on work, clean the apartment, breathe. I even took a real shower, not the 3-minute rush I'd gotten used to. The groceries my aunt sent lasted a full week, and I stretched every meal like I was back in high school again. Toast with peanut butter counted as dinner. Eli was growing fast. He'd started smiling more. Grabbing onto my fingers tighter. Those tiny wins were everything. But I knew better than to believe the silence would last. With my parents, quiet always came before something worse. It started with a weird call from Eli's pediatrician's office. One of the receptionists asked if I'd requested to transfer his medical records. I hadn't. They wouldn't say who called, just that someone with knowledge of the child's details had asked to have everything sent to a new clinic. A town over. I locked Eli's file right after that. Added a passcode, changed my emergency contacts. I didn't even have to wonder who made the call. Only 2 people had that information. And one of them had raced me. That same day, I found out I was taken off an extended family group chat. My cousin Danielle mentioned it like it was nothing. Oh, didn't see you in the thread about Uncle Mark's party. But I hadn't left it. Someone removed me. I didn't care about the chat. What bothered me was how fast they were rewriting the story. Cutting me out before I even got a chance to speak. Then came the real hit. I got a call from a woman I'd worked with once. A freelance contact who ran a family-oriented podcast. She said she'd been contacted by someone claiming to be concerned about my mental health and the safety of my child. The person didn't give a name, just an email. But she forwarded it to me. It was written in the same tone my mom used when she was pretending to be calm but wanted to ruin your day. Overly polite, dripping with fake concern. She said I had postpartum paranoia and might be isolating the baby from necessary family support. My stomach dropped reading it. Not because I was afraid of what people would think, but because it was so calculated. So strategic. They weren't just trying to upset me. They were trying to make me look unfit. It wasn't enough for them to be cut off. They wanted control back. The next morning my brother called. I let it go to voicemail again. He said Mom and Dad were talking about seeking legal advice. That they'd been researching grandparent visitation rights. That they'd already talked to someone who knows someone. He sounded exhausted. Like he knew it was insane but didn't know how to stop it. I could barely breathe after hearing that message. Not because I thought they'd succeed. I knew the law well enough. They had no case. No contact. No relationship with Eli. Nothing. But still, just hearing the word court lit something in my chest I didn't expect. Panic. Rage. A kind of grief I couldn't explain. I held Eli that night and whispered to him things he couldn't possibly understand yet. That I wouldn't let them near him. That he was safe. That whatever it took I'd keep it that way. But deep down it broke something in me. Because I realized they'd never stop. Not because they loved him. Not because they missed me. But because they couldn't stand the idea of not being in control. They didn't want family. They wanted obedience. And the more I pulled away the louder they got. That week Brenda, the family mouthpiece, messaged me again. She said she was worried. That my parents had been nothing but generous. And it was hard watching me throw them away. She said I was acting out of pride. That it would be a shame if Eli grew up without knowing his grandparents, just because I was bitter. She ended the message with, "You can still fix this. Just call them. Say you're sorry." That one hit me in a way the others didn't. Because for a moment, just a moment, I almost did. I almost picked up the phone. Then, as if the universe knew I needed the reminder, my doorbell rang. It was the delivery driver. Groceries again. From my aunt in Georgia this time. I hadn't spoken to her in years. But inside the bag was a handwritten card that said, "You're doing what I should have done a long time ago. Keep going." I stood there in the doorway with that note in my hand and realized something. They weren't all against me. The ones who knew the truth. The ones who remembered the way things really were. They were watching. And this time they were choosing not to stay quiet. My parents were losing the story. And they had no idea how to handle that. Christmas passed. The New Year's. And the silence on my end stayed unbroken. I thought maybe they'd take the hint eventually. That they'd stop trying to spin it, stop reaching out through other people, stop pretending they didn't know what happened. But if anything, they just got louder in the ways that mattered least and quieter in the ways that could have meant something. The messages shifted from guilt to confusion. My brother started calling again, from different numbers, leaving carefully worded voicemails. He said they didn't understand. That Mom was hurt and Dad was embarrassed and that the whole family felt divided. He said, "No one's perfect, Judy. You know how they are. But this. You've made your point." But I wasn't making a point. Not anymore. There was nothing performative about what I did. I wasn't waiting for an apology or some magical change in their behavior. I wasn't teaching them a lesson. I was protecting myself. And my son. And they don't understand that, because they've never had to earn anyone's presence. They've just assumed people would orbit around them forever, no matter how carelessly they were treated. But I stopped orbiting. I got out of their gravity. The thing is, they still talk about me. I know because word keeps reaching me through people I never expected to care. A cousin from Seattle DM'd me out of nowhere, said she was proud of me. That she remembered how my mom used to roll her eyes when I spoke, how my dad mocked anything I liked that wasn't his idea. She said she saw it all then but didn't know how to name it. That's been the pattern. Quiet support. Messages that say, I always wondered how you managed. Or you're not wrong. The relatives my parents expected to back them aren't jumping in the way they used to. They're hearing both sides now. And some of them remember things more clearly than I thought. Like how I was babysitting full-time at 14 while my brother didn't do dishes until he was 20. Like how my mom would tell people I got knocked up instead of saying I was pregnant. Like how my dad used to joke that I owed them rent because I was still living there at 18. People remember. And the more I say nothing, the more obvious it becomes. I think that's driving them crazy. The silence. The lack of access. They don't know what I'm thinking or feeling or saying. They can't correct the narrative because I'm not offering one. I've vanished from their world and they can't spin it in a way that doesn't make them look bad. They tell relatives I'm being dramatic. That it's postpartum hormones. That Qley tried to reach out and I ignored her, she didn't. That I'm cutting off everyone and isolating myself. They've started using words like worry and mental health, trying to frame it like concern. But no one's buying it anymore. Not the way they used to. One aunt even told my mom she should be the one reaching out to me, not to defend herself but to ask what she did that hurt me so badly. My mom's response? She'll come around. She just wants attention. That told me everything. They don't want to fix anything. They want control back. And they're not getting it. Eli turned 6 months last week. I made cupcakes and sang to him alone in the kitchen. Just us. No pressure. No pretending. He grabbed at the frosting and smiled with his whole face. That night I got one final message from my dad's number. We're still your family. One day you'll see that. I didn't reply. Because here's the truth. Family isn't the people who gave you a last name. It's the people who respect your boundaries without needing an explanation. And the people who kept asking, why would Judy just cut them off like that? They've stopped asking. Because now they know. And the ones who don't? They don't matter. I scroll through my phone and see pictures of Eli sleeping with his little fist curled against his cheek. I feel something I didn't expect. Peace. Not pride, not victory, just a kind of stillness I've never had before. I don't jump every time my phone buzzes. I don't feel obligated to explain myself to people who never listened in the first place. There are still hard days, bills I don't know how I'll pay, hours when Eli won't stop crying, moments when I wish things were simpler. But even in the worst of it, I don't miss them. Not their approval. Not their company. Not their money. And definitely not their love, because I finally understand it was never real. It was conditional. Performative. A leash disguised as affection. Now I'm free. And freedom, even when it's lonely, is better than pretending I was ever really safe with them.